All right. Well, if you wanted to know what the housing market is going to look like in 2026, that's what we're discussing in this episode. This is your 2026 real estate outlook from some of the leading economists on what to expect in the housing market and real estate industry for this year. So,
Side note, real quick.
uh-huh.
Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe, people.
Yes, and that's free regardless of what's happening in the economy. Doesn't cost you anything. I'll kick it off with Lawrence Yun, who is the chief economist for the National Association of Realtors. And he sees things getting a little bit better. He says he sees things getting a little bit better with home sales. Inventory's been picking up. So inventory is still not back to pre-pandemic levels, but there was an increase in home sales, not home sales rather, but inventory. I think it was about 20% increase over what it was this time last year. So inventory's been picking up, and
Everybody trying to sell.
yeah, pretty much. And that's
But ain't nobody hardly trying to buy. That's what it is.
It's hard to get the buyers off the fence for sure. Because Lawrence Yun was saying that he's expecting home sales to increase about 14% nationwide this year. So maybe that's the buyer increase that you're waiting on.
Yeah, it's got to be, because I mean, the longer the more inventory came from not only the houses sitting on the market longer, but just the fact that more and more people were trying to sell.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, it's funny how the pendulum has shifted, because if you were a listing agent in 2020, 2021, literally like 4 years ago, 4 years ago, you were like in, the driver's seat of your career. Essentially, it's like the more listings you had, the more money you were making, because homes were flying off the market left and right. It's like the ink wasn't even dry on the listing agreement before it's like you had buyers lining up to pay above asking price for that home. And now we're in this situation where it's like, oh, great, I got another listing. We'll see if we can get this thing sold in under 30 days, because homes are just sitting longer. Buyers are a little slower on pulling the trigger. They still don't like where interest rates are. And that's another thing that was discussed as well, is interest rates. So,
Yeah, what interest rates gonna do, Frederick? That's what I'm concerned about.
Well, you're in luck. There's not going to be any change, so you already know what to expect.
Look, no change. Oh no, honey, you. Those two concepts don't go together in my book. Sorry.
You already know what to expect. That's the beneficial part. It's not like you're wondering about the effect that's going to have on your.
Frederick, if you don't get your grass is always greener. Already know what to expect. Glass half full.
Yeah,
God.
for those who are thirsty. Yeah, I mean, there is not, and this is across the real estate and mortgage industry, the economists on both sides, they're not expecting much of a change with interest rates at all for the entire year of 2026. And I'll put this out there as well. This was actually something that was an outlook or forecast from economists towards the end of 2025. So this is nothing new that, when the clock struck midnight on January 1st, all of a sudden these predictions are like, we don't see the interest rates going anywhere. No, it was like, a couple months ago, the economists were already talking like we're not going to see much of a change in the interest rates and everything. So it's been a lot slower on that front. I will say the big reason is because of the uncertainty in the economic environment. So the stock market likes certainty, because when something uncertain happens, you'll see the stock market going all kinds of haywire. But mortgage investors, people who buy mortgage-backed securities, people who invest in mortgage notes, those individuals or companies, corporations, they also like stability. They like certainty. You don't like being in a market where you're holding on to millions, if not billions of dollars worth of mortgages, and then it's a environment where all of a sudden people are going to start getting laid off by the masses, and you're holding all their debt. And now that's going to affect whether or not you're going to be able to get paid, and whether or not, if you've got a warehouse line of credit, meaning that you've got to pay someone else for the debt that you're holding for someone else, you don't know if you're going to be able to make those payments if you're not getting your payments. So when there's uncertainty, it very much so affects the mortgage industry. And with the economic environment, geopolitical environment that we're in right now, it's a lot of uncertainty, and investors don't like that, especially when you're holding, tens, hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars worth of mortgage notes. You like to know that with the stroke of a pen on, whether it's an executive order, or whether it's a new law that gets passed, or whether it's AI, that's replacing a lot of people, or, to be determined how many jobs will, shift because of AI. You'd like to know that the people whose notes you're holding are still going to be able to pay their mortgages. So all that uncertainty is going to definitely be keeping rates higher, because people just don't know. We were actually hopeful, we being individuals in the mortgage industry, were hopeful that mortgage rates were going to fall last year in 2025. And that did not happen.
Well, I just knew that it would, more significantly than a few points, which, it may have went down by 0.2 or 0.3 at most, at best. But I think it's interesting. One of the things that this article says is that, or it recounts how mortgage rates jumped from 3% in 2021 to above 7% in 2023. And it largely hovered around that area for the last 2 years. It's gotten a little bit better, because I think they're now closer to 6.5. No higher than 6.5, I think, right now, right?
Yeah, they're around 6.5. Some people might be able to get into the low sixes.
But just that 4% jump between 2021 and 2023 was $1,000 a month difference in the typical monthly payment, which is crazy. And so it's like, I was speaking to a realtor the other day, and a lot of realtors have said, 2025 was a crazy year. It was the slowest year they'd had in a long time. And, I've even had buyers who were fully pre-qualified, but, a $320,000 house was going to cost them upwards of $2,600 to $2,800 a month. And it's just like, well, no, I don't want to be house poor. I do love the house, but I think I'll just wait. I don't necessarily have to buy. I'm staying with relatives right now. And so that, same house probably would have cost, I don't know, 2,200, maybe 2,000. I don't think that it would have been like 1,600 or anything like that. But I do think that I know that that's a huge factor. And then, what is her name? Jessica. She's saying that, I think it's interesting how she says that when she talks about affordability. No, that was Danielle. Danielle, the chief economist of Realtor.com.
Oh, yeah.
Who was saying that affordability will improve. Home prices are going to decline, but it doesn't mean sticker prices will fall. It just means affordability is improving, because home prices are going to be more affordable relative to other goods and services. So I thought that was a very interesting concept, because you say home prices are going to decline, not necessarily the sticker prices, but other goods and services. So what are we talking about? I guess insurance, energy bills, what else? Home warranty is probably going to become more affordable, but maybe even just the cost of building material. I don't know. I thought that was just an interesting concept. But how affordability is improving, monthly payments are shrinking. So, I'm hoping that the rates will I'm hoping that they're wrong as far as the rates hovering around the same place still. You
Hmm.
know, I hope that we get a little bit lower, at least in the five, so the high fours, you know.
Oh
Come
yeah.
on now. Huh?
I think the high fours are probably about 4, 5 years away.
Oh my goodness. Well, if you buy your interest rate down,
Oh
you
yeah,
can
you can
have
absolutely
whatever
buy
you
your interest
want
rate down, and you could also, get you a new construction home that's, top quality built home as they build them these days.
in a HOA cookie cutter, look like everybody else's.
Well, they got to make their money back somewhere. If they giving you all these
Right.
incentives up front, they're like, we'll get it back from them over the next 10 years in the HOA fees, and then we'll fine them for leaves on their yard. Um,
I mean, that's essentially how I feel like, a lot of people look at mortgage rate buy downs like, oh, you're really just paying the interest now rather than paying it later. It's not like you're saving on the interest. Like, you know what I'm
oh,
saying?
absolutely. That's why I tell people I don't. There are some markets in which it makes sense for you to do a buy down, if you will. And I teach everyone who's interested or considering a buy down how to actually calculate the cost. So,
Mm-hmm.
matter of fact, we can do it live right now.
Oh, come on, live demonstration.
Yeah, live
Ladies
demonstration.
and
We'll see if
gentlemen,
these
that was
numbers work
never
out.
done before.
See how bad I can fumble through this one. But but no, I tell people, like, say for example, if for you to buy down your interest rate, let's say 1%. So for you to get from a 6% to a 5% interest rate, it's going to cost you $10,000.
Oh my
And
goodness.
oh yeah, we gonna be realistic with today's market. Now there are some markets in which it would have cost much less than that, but right now buy downs are expensive. So let's just say if it's gonna cost you $10,000 to buy it down 1%, then and you got to also factor in one other thing: how much are you going to be saving every single month? And so let's say that 1% difference is going to save you $200 a month, which is actually what a lot of people somewhere around there, maybe, plus or minus $10 or $15. You might be able to save around $200 a month, especially depending upon the price of the home. The higher price home, a 1% is going to make a much bigger difference than like a lower price home. But let's just say $200 a month. So you take that 10,000, divide it by 200, and you get 50. That's 50 months. So you take that 50 divided by 12, and that's 4 years, just over 4 years. Because 48 months is 4 years. So that's just over 4 years, which means that you will prepay 4 years worth of interest up front just to get that lower rate. If you were going to stay in that loan for 10 years, maybe it makes sense for you, because you're like, okay, I prepay the first 4 years, but after that 4 year mark, now you're in the positive, you're just saving. However, what if after 2 years, rates drop down to 5%? You're still going to be paying that 6% unless you refinance. But if you refinance, you don't get back the money that you've already prepaid. So if you've already prepaid, 4 years worth of interest, and you refinance after 2 years, that 2 years is just lost. You don't get that money back. So you essentially, gave them almost half your money, just to in hopes that. So what I tell people is I recommend, like, look, if you're going to buy down your interest rate, have the numbers work to where your break even point is happening in 2 years or less. 3 years is like the absolute max that I'd be willing to go, but I usually tell people 3 years or less. So if it's like, hey, you can buy it down that 1% and it's going to cost you $5,000, then, and that $5,000 is going to save you $200 a month. Well, now we're right at, 2 years. So that makes more sense. So that's how I tell people how to calculate that so that they can hopefully get a better deal.
Sounds like it would almost be better if they just put that money towards, the down payment. If you just have that much money to spend, However, and then that'll eliminate how much money you're financing, which would naturally also drop
Your payment.
monthly payment, but probably not as much as an interest rate buy down, especially in those beginning years.
Yeah.
You're paying more towards interest than you are principal anyway. So,
Because
yeah, I mean, it all comes together. It makes sense.
yeah, because so let's use the same $10,000. If you got $10,000 that you put in a buy down, let's say that $10,000 can get you down 1%, and that 1% is going to save you $200 a month. It's costing you $10,000 up front to save $200, per month on your mortgage payment. If you were to put that $10,000 towards the principal, so that you have a loan that's $10,000 less, instead of purchasing that home for $300,000, maybe you purchase it for $290, or instead of purchasing it for $400,000, you purchase it for $390. So you say, I'm gonna put that $10,000 toward that. That's only going to help your mortgage payment maybe about $70, $60, $70, $75, somewhere in that range, between 60 and 75, somewhere around there. So the impact is not going to be as big with $10,000 decreased on the purchase price versus $10,000 on that interest rate. So yeah, no, I've actually told people to actually consider paying more for the home if it'll appraise for more, and then having the seller give you, rather than doing a price reduction, have the seller give you that money toward buying down your interest rate. Yeah, like, oh, you've got your home listed for $350. Okay, cool. I tell you what, I'll pay $360, but then I want you to give me $10,000. And then you put that $10,000 toward the buy down or whatever, or you have the seller give that $10,000 back to you. So you pay $360 for the house, and then the seller contributes $10,000 more in closing costs, which you can use to buy down that interest rate, because you paying $360 for the house with an interest rate that's 1% less is actually going to be cheaper, or it's going to be more affordable for you on your monthly payments than paying $350 without the $10,000 buy down.
Yeah, it sounds to me like the buy down would be better if you're going to be in that house long term, 6-7 years or more, because then you won't be losing money. But if this is like a starter home, or an investment property that you're going to live in for maybe like a year and then rent it out or flip it or something like that, or whatever, you probably would want to just put that extra money towards the purchase price, because you're not going to see the benefit really if you do a buy down, if you're not really planning on holding on to the home long term. So
yeah,
interesting.
Yeah. So I mean, if you're a first-time home buyer out there, I would say for the first-time home buyers, what you saw in 2025, expect a lot of that in 2026 in terms of interest rates, in terms of home prices. There's not going to be the huge slash in home prices when everyone was like, oh, we're in a housing bubble and, housing market's going to crash. It's not going to crash. We're not in that 2008 situation of, people are foreclosing on their homes left and right. Like, no, if someone's actually getting into trouble where they can't make their mortgage payment, they're going to put their home up for sale because they've got so much equity in it that they gained over the last, few years when home prices just went sky high. It's like, no, you got that home for like 200,000. Now it's worth like 400,000. You're not about to let 400,000 just, foreclose on. No, you're going to sell that home, even if you sold it for 350 and still get 150,000 out of it.
Or even if, there was a time when you had to live in a house 5-6 years even to just be able to break even. But now I've seen people break even 2-3 years.
Oh, absolutely. So,
even just to walk away not owing anything would be a better idea than to, sit up and let them foreclose on your home. And then you just don't put it up for sale, because it's not like you can't. Now you actually can, because like you said, the equity is accumulating so much quicker nowadays. So
yeah. This year they are expecting that to more so match inflation, be around 2 to 3%. That was another thing they did say. They're expecting home prices to increase 2 to 3% this year, but that's going to match, around where inflation is. Inflation is around 2 to 3%. So, basically home prices going up along with the cost of all the other goods and services, which, is normal for any economy, at least this economy. But having increased inventory, that will be the one thing that I would keep eyes on, because having more houses out there tends to, speak to demand decreasing when supply is outpacing the demand, and generally home prices start falling. So it will be interesting if we're in a situation where we're getting more inventory, but no one's still buying and home prices aren't falling. That will be a weird one to figure out. But yeah, I would just say first time.
Well, I just have more faith for this year. This year is going to buy. My latter is going to be greater than my former. That's what I believe.
Absolutely.
This year I'm looking forward to doing so much more business this year than I did last year. Last year wasn't necessarily bad, but it wasn't necessarily my best year, the greatest year that I've had either. So I'm looking forward to, now that we've gotten kind of used to the volatility of this current presidential administration, people, they're not necessarily on pins and needles anymore, because they already know that it's just unpredictable and you just need to pray and go on about your day. Now people they're like, okay, well, I can't keep putting my life on hold. I had 100% uptick in showings on some of my listings after the holidays.
Wow.
When as soon as October hits, usually through October 31st to January 1st is the slow season. Showings slow down. People, don't want to list their homes. It's just like, we want to get through the holidays. We do not want the added stress of having to buy or sell a house, which is the most stressful thing that most people will ever do in their entire life. In addition to hosting my terrible in-laws for the holidays. My demanding in-laws, we got to make room for them. Then the holidays are just back to back. We cooking all this food, then people getting sick, and it's too much, and so then it just picks back up. And so I say we have 10 really good working months every year in the real estate industry. So I'm looking forward to January through October of this year. I'm gonna hit it hard, and then in November, December, I'm going to be vacationing. You better believe it. So,
well, you know what? I'm always having a positive outlook on at least how I'm doing my business. That might not mirror what I think the economy is going to do, but I always am, and my wife will tell you I'm more of the optimist than anything. Like in terms of how I think I'll perform, because I serve the God who owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. He knows how to provide you, whether it's provide for you in a billion different ways. So I mean, there is no, he's not limited by anything. So it's like, I'm always like, what, we're going to be provided for. I'm not worried about it. Whatever happens to the economy, up, down, left, right, whatever, it doesn't really matter. We're still going to be charging for it. So I encourage everyone to have that approach when it comes to you purchasing a home, when it comes to what you're wanting to do. Stop basing your decisions off of something you can't control. If you want to buy a home, go buy a home. Do what you need to do. Huh?
I said, please.
Yes. It's like, go buy a home. It's like, stop basing, I'm going to do it now. I'm not going to do it now. I'm going to wait. I'm not going to wait. Just based off of what the economy is doing. It's like, you can't control the economy. And if you let the economy run your life, you'll always be in the passenger seat, pointing the finger, playing the blame game of why you're not where you want to be in life. It's like, well, take control. Go buy the house. Go do what you want to do. So,
yeah.
Well, that's what you got to expect for 2026. Really, it's all in your hands. Those are the outlooks, but anything could really happen. And ultimately, the thing that's going to be most impactful is going to be what you do with your time, not what the economy does, which is something you can't control. So make sure you like, subscribe, tune in. Fridays, Greatest Asset Community Podcast. Tuesday, Home Finance Hacks. Till next time, take care. Be blessed. See you next week.
Arrivederci.